What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL playoffs, wild card round, Saturday games, top DFS picks.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon.
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for this week's NFL slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay, guys, NFL playoffs, wild card round. Let's take a look at this two-game slate on Saturday. That's today. Starts at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So at the quarterback position, I like Derek Carr from the Las Vegas Raiders playing the Cincinnati Bengals, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing quarterbacks. Derek Carr has averaged 17.3 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 2.4 rush attempts per game. He's projected at 16.5 fantasy points here today, but I think he can score 20 plus fantasy points in this one. I think he can be a good value play at quarterback here because he's only $5,800 DraftKings salary. He's $1,000 more on FanDuel, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 48.5 points scored in this game, with the Raiders trailing by 6. So this is potentially a passing game script for Derek Carr and the Raiders. And there's a low salary wide receiver that I want to stack up with Derek Carr. Now, the pricing is pretty reasonable on this slate, so you don't have to go crazy with value plays. But I do want to spend up at the running back position. So Derek Carr has scored 15, 12, and 11 fantasy points in the last 3 games. And he had 1 and 7 rush attempts in those games. So his numbers have not been fantastic here, but he does seem like they're on a roll. Recently, that was a huge win for them last week. And I do think this is going to be a passing game script because I think they're going to fall behind the Bengals here. And he's got a couple of wide receivers that have emerged. And he also has his tight end Darren Waller back, who's now got a game under his belt and should be more involved in the passing game here. So if you want a value play at the quarterback position, I like Derek Carr here versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, if you want to pay up or spend up at the quarterback position, go with a guy like Josh Allen or Joe Burrow. Well, they're the only 2 expensive quarterbacks on the slate. So between the 2 of these guys, I'm kind of leaning towards Joe Burrow because he's probably going to be less owned, so you're going to get lower ownership. And just take a look at Joe Burrow real quick. From the Cincinnati Bengals playing the Las Vegas Raiders, who have the 10th worst defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing quarterbacks. Looks like Joe Burrow has the best quarterback matchup on the slate, and he's averaged 21.8 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 2.5 rush attempts per game. He's projected at 20.4 fantasy points here in the wild card round of the playoffs. He's $7,300 DraftKings salary, $500 more on FanDuel. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 48.5 points scored in this game, with the Bengals favored by 6. So this game is the higher scoring game on the slate. They only think there's going to be 44 points scored in that Buffalo-New England game. So potentially more fantasy points to go around in this Cincinnati Raiders game. And Joe Burrow scored 38 and 41 fantasy points in his last 2 games. He had 5 and 2 rush attempts. So he's got some major upside here. He's playing very well. His wide receivers have really made a lot of progress this season with Jamar Chase. He also has Tyler Boyd, who is a fantastic wide receiver. So he's got some weapons to throw the ball to. So I like Joe Burrow here versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Okay, let's take a look at the running back position. So I want to spend up at the running back position. There's some value plays at the wide receiver position we can get into. So this is not going to be a problem to get this guy into your lineup. My top running back on this slate, he's going to be in pretty much all of my lineups for this game or for this Saturday slate. I like Joe Mixon from the Cincinnati Bengals playing the Las Vegas Raiders, who have the 10th worst defense overall. They give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Joe Mixon has averaged 18.6 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 18.3 rush attempts per game and 3 pass targets per game. He's projected at 18.1 fantasy points here in the wild card round of the playoffs. He's $7,100 DraftKings salary, $1,400 more on FanDuel. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 48.5 points scored in this game, with the Bengals favored by 6. So you got a fantastic matchup. You got a high-scoring game, a potential running game script here, and Joe Mixon has scored 16 and 32 fantasy points in the last 3 games, off of 12 and 18 rush attempts, on top of 8 and 6 pass targets. So I like Joe Mixon here versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Okay guys, it's time to announce the winner of our $25 weekly PayPal giveaway, and the winner is Mario Rodriguez Jr. Congratulations, Mario Rodriguez Jr. You are the winner of this week's $25 PayPal giveaway. Please reply to our comment to collect your prize.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Now the other running back that I like on this slate is Damian Harris from the New England Patriots playing the Buffalo Bills, who have a good defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing running backs. Damian Harris has averaged 15.1 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 13.5 rush attempts per game and 1.4 pass targets per game. Now, he is questionable, but he's been questionable the past couple of weeks, and he's been playing. He looks fine out there, so he's going to be good to go. Bill Belichick loves to keep that questionable tag on his players to keep them guessing, and that's probably going to lead to some lower ownership from Damian Harris, which is going to be pretty good as well. So he's projected at 14.3 fantasy points here in the wild card round of the playoffs. He's $6,400 DraftKings salary, $1,100 more on FanDuel. We know, or Vegas thinks there's going to be 44 points scored in this game, with the Patriots trailing by 5. Now, Damian Harris, he scored 17, 18, and 31 fantasy points in the last 3 games, off of 11, 9, and 18 rush attempts, on top of 4 and 1 pass targets in the last 2 games. So the volume's not out of control here, but remember, he was kind of, not injured, but, he was kind of injured the past few games, getting to 100% for the playoffs. So I think they took it easy with him, and I think he's going to return to like a 15 to 20 touch type game here today. So I like Damian Harris here versus the Buffalo Bills. Okay, now the value play at the running back position, the guy that just looks like the most sense to play as a value play at the running back position would be Devin Singletary from the Buffalo Bills playing the New England Patriots, who have a good defense overall. They've been middle of the pack defending opposing running backs. Devin Singletary has averaged 11.8 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 11.1 rush attempts per game and 2.9 pass targets per game. And he's projected at 11.9 fantasy points here in the wild card round of the playoffs. But just take a look at his last 3 games real quick. He scored 25, 26, and 19 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 19, 23, and 12 rush attempts on top of 2, 1, and 6 pass targets. So that's a ton of volume, excellent production the past 3 games, and he's only $5,800 DraftKings salary, $1,100 more on FanDuel. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 44 points scored in this game, with the Buffalo Bills favored by 5. So I think he's a good value play here. If you want to stack players at the other positions, you want to save a little money on a guy that's got 20 plus fantasy point upside, I like Devin Singletary here versus the New England Patriots.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all the tools for NFL. NBA is right around the corner. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, moving on to the wide receiver position, I like Tyler Boyd from the Cincinnati Bengals playing the Las Vegas Raiders, who have the 10th worst defense overall, and they've been pretty good versus opposing wide receivers. Sorry, I didn't mention, this is a value play that I like. I'm going to give you my value plays first, because it's kind of always easy just to pick the guys that have the highest salary. So I think the value plays are more important to identify here. So Tyler Boyd, he's averaged 11.7 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 5.9 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 73% of the snaps, and he's projected at 11.3 fantasy points here in the wild card round of the playoffs. He's only $4,600 DraftKings salary, $1,400 more on FanDuel. So I love that DraftKings price. I think he's just underpriced on DraftKings. He should be somewhere around $5K, but only $4,600. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 48.5 points scored in this game, with the Bengals favored by 6. Now, Tyler Boyd has played well all season long, and he scored 14 and 18 fantasy points in the last 2 games off of 6 and 5 pass targets. So I like Tyler Boyd as a value play here versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the other value play that I like on the slate is Zay Jones from the Las Vegas Raiders playing the Cincinnati Bengals, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing wide receivers. Now, Zay Jones has scored 8, 23, and 11 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 8, 10, and 8 pass targets. So he's getting a ton of volume. He's been super productive, and he's only $4,000 DraftKings salary, $1,300 more on FanDuel. So I like Zay Jones as a value play here versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, you want to pay up at the wide receiver position? My top 3 pay up options would be Hunter Renfrow from the Las Vegas Raiders. He's $6,400 DraftKings salary, $900 more on FanDuel. He scored 17, 21, and 13 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 5, 9, and 3 pass targets. So I like Hunter Renfrow. Also like Jamar Chase, who is $7,800 DraftKings salary, $400 more on FanDuel. He scored 5, 59, and 23 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 4, 12, and 10 pass targets. Probably my favorite spend up option on the slate. He is the most expensive wide receiver on the slate.
but for good reason. He's got that monster upside. I think he's going to get 10 plus targets in this game. He's got that monster upside, projected at 21.3 fantasy points here in the wild card round of the playoffs. He's on the field for 85% of the snaps. So I like Jamar Chase here versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And the other pay-up option would be Stephon Diggs from the Buffalo Bills playing the New England Patriots, who have a good defense overall. They've been good versus opposing wide receivers. Stephon Diggs has averaged 17.2 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 9.7 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 82% of the snaps, projected at 16.9 fantasy points here in the wild card round of the playoffs. He's $7,500 DraftKings salary, $500 more on FanDuel, and he scored 23, 10, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 14, 9, and 13 pass targets. So tons of volume. He's been productive. Now, he does have a tough matchup here, so I might prefer Jamar Chase over Stephon Diggs, but both of these guys are explosive wide receivers. They've got the most upside on the slate, so chances are one of these guys is going to go off, and you're going to need them in your lineup to get it done here in this slate. So I like Stephon Diggs here versus the New England Patriots. Okay, moving on to the tight end position. We mentioned Darren Waller, who came back last game. He got 9 pass targets. Now, he only scored 4 fantasy points, but now he's got that game under his belt. I'm expecting him to get plenty of pass targets in this one. He's $5,700 DraftKings salary, $600 more on FanDuel, but it's somewhat of a risky play here just because you don't know if his conditioning is fully back or how his involvement's going to be or how he's going to produce. But this guy does have some pretty monster upside, and if his ownership is low, I will be interested in playing Darren Waller just because he got 9 pass targets last game, so I'm expecting more of the same here today. So I like Darren Waller here versus the Cincinnati Bengals. But the tight end that I like the most on this slate is Hunter Henry from the New England Patriots playing the Buffalo Bills, who have a good defense overall. They've been good versus opposing tight ends, and Hunter Henry has averaged 9.7 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 4.4 pass targets per game. He's projected at 9.5 fantasy points here today. He's $4,500 DraftKings salary, $1,400 more on FanDuel. He scored 14, 7, and 2 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 6, 5, and 6 pass targets. So I'm hoping he can get somewhere between 5 and 8 pass targets here in this game. His salary is pretty low at only $4,500 DraftKings salary, although all the salary is pretty reasonable for these tight ends. There's no monster tight end on the slate. Darren Waller's the most expensive tight end on the slate at $5,700, but I like Hunter Henry here versus the Buffalo Bills.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.